Open a fresh AI coding session and the first job often feels strangely familiar. Retell the whole project. You explain why the product works this way, which experiments failed, which files are off limits, which checks already passed, and what the user changed yesterday. The window fills with old context before the current action becomes clear. The problem is usually not a lack of records. There may be chat archives, specifications, commits, notes, and issue threads everywhere. The problem is that none of them has been organized around the action in front of you. More context does not automatically create better understanding. Irrelevant history competes with the few constraints that actually determine the next move. A new session needs the minimum sufficient context for the current step. Minimum does not mean omitting a critical fact, and sufficient does not mean copying the archive. It means answering a small set of action questions. What result should this session produce? Which facts are already verified? What counts as complete? Which unresolved risks or boundaries can change the decision? Start with one result that can be judged. Continue improving the product is too broad. Identify the cause of the login failure and verify the fix on the narrowest user path gives the session a finish line. A precise goal tells the agent what evidence to gather, or not to expand, and when exploration should turn into delivery. Next, carry forward evidence rather than the entire discussion. Include the observed API response, the test that passed, the constraint confirmed in code, or the reason a previous approach was rejected. Evidence prevents the next session from repeating settled work. Assumptions without evidence should remain visibly unverified so they can be tested instead of inherited as truth. Then define completion from the user's point of view. Has the change landed? Does the actual user path work? Can the final generated artifact be parsed and run? Did the publishing channel return a durable receipt? Does the interface still expose internal implementation language? Completion criteria stop a session from declaring victory when only the easiest part of the path is working. Include the few open boundaries and risks that genuinely affect the result. A frozen production baseline, existing user changes that must be preserved, or a channel configured to create drafts can all change the correct action. These are responsibility boundaries, not an invitation to dump internal complexity on the user. The implementation layer should absorb everything else. When those elements become a step handoff, the handoff behaves like a relay baton rather than a warehouse. It tells the next session where to resume, which conclusions are settled, which evidence matters, and what outcome finishes the leg. The full chat remains available as a source, but it no longer has to be the front door to every new piece of work. Solo map places that restart point beside the project roadmap. You select the current step and launch the agent conversation from it. The step's goal, evidence, completion criteria, and handoff become the starting context. Long-lived project knowledge stays with the project, while the new session receives only what it needs to complete the present action. Automatic context should never remove the user's authority. The newest instruction in the current session must remain the highest priority. A production incident, a market change, or a direct publishing request may need to override an older plan. A useful context package provides a stable starting point while letting one clear current instruction replace stale assumptions. You can test this method in 15 minutes. Choose one real step that has stalled and open a new agent conversation. Write only 4 lines, the result for this session, verified evidence, completion criteria, and unresolved risk. Add today's highest priority instruction. Review each block of old background and remove it if the current decision would remain the same without it. Continuity does not come from making every session remember more. It comes from resuming at the correct place. Keep the archive in a verifiable project record, give the current step its minimum sufficient context, and keep the final decision with the user. The next time you open a new session, do not retell the whole project. Choose the step and begin with the next action.